Let's talk about a bit more detail on two subjects, English and history.
Yeah.
What are some of the key things that you think students can do to learn English and history more easily and become more successful in their exams? And you can
So
dive into specific exam board or exam types, I suppose. That's
yeah,
GCSE 11 plus, A
yeah,
level, etc.
yeah, absolutely. So I think obviously there's been curriculum reform in the past few years with for GCSE, and one of the things, and with history in particular, one of the things that is a challenge, and I know from speaking to fellow history teachers, and I also do work as an examiner, so speaking to history teachers who are examiners, um, the big challenge from a teaching point of view, and therefore I think from a student point of view, is that the content of GCSE history is now very, very heavy. There is a lot of content to learn, and some of the textbooks are extremely detailed, more so than I think before curriculum reform. So I think it really, in order to learn that, you need to try and do it in chunks and not try and also to try and learn that content as you go along. So not just doing the classwork, but making your revision cards or whatever works for you as you go along. Regularly dipping into those notes, because to learn the amount of content there is now at the end of the course is, I would say, for everyone except the people with the best memories in the world, it is really, really difficult. And I think it, little and often, a bit like when when I was younger, I played the piano. I'm married to a music teacher, so with music, you practice your instrument and you do that little and often, and you build up. And I think that skill's the same with something like history. You need to do a small amount as long. And I think for all subjects, actually, you need to find out what works for you in terms of revision, because you may get. I know when I was teaching in a secondary school, occasionally you would get a situation where a teacher had been on a course and they were, I don't know, this course had talked about and extolled the virtues of, I don't know, mind maps or something like that. And this has then been cascaded back to the staff of the school, and suddenly year 11 students find themselves in every subject making a mind map. Now, mind maps are great if they work for you, but I do think they don't work for everybody. And just like, they don't particularly work for me, for example, if I was learning something. So it's finding out what works for you and breaking it down into those chunks, I think. History, I wish, whenever I'm teaching history now, I really think to myself, oh, I wish I'd gone to school now, because the internet is just so amazing. I think parents may be worried that their kids are spending too much time on the internet, but actually the things that are available on the internet is just an amazing resource. YouTube clips. I've got a son who's nearly a teenager, and YouTube is life for a lot of young people, and I know that. But actually, there's so much for history on YouTube. There's passé news clips. There's bits of documentaries. It's amazing, and those kinds of things can really help with learning that content. In a way that's not just sitting down and reading a book. So I think that's really good. And a lot of the same skills, I think, for A level. But obviously, with your A level, you've got to really get your head around those interpretations and things like that are so important on some of the questions. And then in terms of English, I think the main thing is just to read. When I'm working with students, the ones who do the best and find it most straightforward to pass their exams are the ones who read for pleasure. They read outside of it because they just get a feel for text and for language. And I just think it's so important, because for English language, it's certainly, there's not a lot of specific things you can learn beyond your sort of, literary terms and things like that. But you can really, so I think just reading for pleasure and reading widely is the best thing that students can do for English language. Obviously for English literature, it's a little bit different. There is a bit more content that needs to be learnt. And the same things I think apply as for history in many ways. But there are things like if you're studying a play, for example, and that play happens to be in a theatre near where you live and you can afford to go, try and go and get a ticket and go and see it, because a play is meant to be watched, really, not read, and I think you'll get a lot more out of it. Hopefully maybe sometimes schools will organise a trip like that, but if they don't, be proactive and try and go and see it, because you'll get a lot more out of that then. Other things for English, just looking up unfamiliar words in the dictionary. Again, we're in the modern age. You don't even need to have a dictionary.
Just type it in.
Usually when or just ask Siri or Google, or other assistants are available,